Hey everyone, this is John Contalpamo from Albany Fine Arts with a special class on brushes. This brush, everybody's got to buy them. Well, I thought I'd share a little information about them, stuff that I've learned over the years, and maybe it can help you a lot. We start out with a basic brush, a flat, just to give you an idea of what I look for in a brush so that it'll at least give me a decent amount of life. You take a close look at the brush, you can see that there's a couple of crimps at the base. More crimps and a better stick means it's going to last longer. Okay, keeping it washed well and keeping paint out of the base of the strings of brushes is a good idea. Keep it clean, But you want a good long stick, a solid stick, something really, a little bit more firm. It's not going to move. There's no movement in it. Okay, with a good crimp right by the end of the hair itself. That's what I try to look for. But there's different types of brushes too. You can buy the inexpensive stuff. I get all these inexpensive brushes, and I can buy them for $15-20 for groups of brushes, like these little fine points. And these brushes are fine. They're going to last maybe a month or so, maybe a little less, and then I get more. But for the price, you can't beat it. The better brushes are going to cost more, but they're going to give you more life if you take care of them. So this is the flat brush. The tip on these brushes, used to make thick, consistent strokes. They're usually kind of used for larger areas, covering surface areas or fill-ins, that kind of thing, and blending. The next thing is flat, bright brushes. They got shorter bristles. They're flats. Come in different sizes, and they have they're flat at the top, and they're flat strokes, so they're narrow, and when they're wet, you can do really fine strokes with them. They're great for trees and branches and all different things. Same thing, you look for that good crimp at the end, a couple of crimps by the stick. Good quality brush is going to last you a while. The next one you're going to look at is an angular flat, and that basically just means there's a chisel on the brush right at the top. It's got an angle cut up, which is really great for fine detail and stuff. When it's wet with paint, and if it's formed right and you take care of it, it's going to give you a nice chisel. Right? There's a lot of brushes that I use, some I don't. Round brushes, it kind of comes to a point almost, but it's round and it's great for fill in. I use them sometimes, but not as often as others. And then you have some that have more of a point at the tip, but you want to make sure I get various kinds of hair. I don't always get the same thing. Now they have ox hair and fox and sable and all different types of fur. It's synthetic. This is synthetic. Works pretty good. I try to stay away from synthetic if I can. Another thing that a lot of people don't use a lot is a filbert brush or a fine hair brush. It's a long, thin stroke, very thin brush, great for detail. They come even longer. You can get really long ones. They have less hair. They when they're wet, they come to a complete fine point. So that really thin detail line you can get with it. Great for fur or doing a lot of detail on. And there's the fan brush. These are come in all different sizes, 3/4, 1 inch, 1.5 inches, up to 2 inches. I've seen really large ones. Fan brushes are suited for blending and feathering, but I use them mostly for shrubbery and trees and bushes and things like that. But not always. Sometimes it doesn't work well, for that. Sometimes it depends on the situation. But that's what they're for. They're good. And you want to make sure, again, same thing, good crimp in the end, couple crimps toward the stick, a good solid stick. The plastic isn't bad either. I like the plastic ones too. Then there's liner brushes or riggers, extremely long brushes. I don't use them. Mop brushes, those are hold large amounts of paint, But, you can use any one large, brush, or you can use these large flats for the same thing, They're really large amount of paint, but the mops are differently shaped. They're round. I don't have a need for them, but you can get them if you like. Want to try them out? There's not much difference except that it's a rounded top, you know. And then the other thing you got to keep in mind is pallets, pallet knives. Okay? I use them all the time. Sometimes I'll use something as simple as, some household, you know, tool that I have around the house, or some broken spatulas or plastic squeegees. I use all kinds of things. But these are the basics. They're just little chiseled knives. They're great for doing paint work. They come in plastic. They come in metal. They used to have these years ago. They were wooden, but it's really just the same thing. They hold paint. They're great for mixing paint and mixing colors. I try to keep quite a few of them around. They're inexpensive. You can buy them in packs of 10 or 15. They're not that expensive. But there is a difference in some, the softer they are, the more pliable they are, because you can see some are more pliable than others, and some are really more rigid, and this one's a little less. This is more rigid. So it's great for large amounts of paint. The other thing to keep in mind when you're buying brushes is, what you're using them for. So there's a big difference between an acrylic brush and watercolor and oils. Now you can use acrylic brushes for watercolor, but you can't switch over to oils, because if there's any oil left in the paint, it's going to come out in your work. So you want to keep your oil and your acrylic brushes separate. Really important to do that. Don't mix it up. Don't let your brushes get mixed up. Once you've used a brush in oil, it stays an oil brush, and that's it. If you use it in acrylics, it's an acrylic brush. It's meant for water-based paints. So don't mix them up. It's a good practice to do that. And caring for your brushes, there's a lot of things. There's brush cleaners. They come in little cans that you can clean the brush with. It pulls the paint out and it kind of draws it out. Those are great. I use a couple of different types, but they all work. And the other thing is you want to make sure that you have good sized jars or something to keep your brushes clean in. Constantly keep water. I keep 2 large jugs of water with me when I paint, when I work on a project. Keeping them clean is really important. I use warm water too. It seems to get the paint out better, and at the same time, you don't want to spend too much time with the cleaning. You want to make sure you have a lot of good clean water so that you can always keep cleaning as you go. So that's the basics on brushes. There's a lot of different places where you can get them, and you can buy them from the hobby stores or from any arts and crafts store. There's large stores that sell them. You'll all see them, Michaels and so on and so forth. But you can buy them online. It's kind of the same thing now. The market's pretty open. There are very expensive brushes. So to kind of break that down for you, expensive brushes are made with better hair and with better quality. They're going to last a little longer, you would hope, right? Most of the time they are. There are some that aren't, but if you spend your time looking at them and you do a comparison, you'll see there is a difference. And I get those for, those projects where there's a lot of work, where you're doing a large painting, or you're doing a lot of work, a lot of detail, and you want that brush to last a while. Spend a little bit more money on the good brushes. Get a good set for yourself. Buy a lot of the cheaper brushes that keep to the side. I always keep a large selection of cheaper brushes, and then I buy the good sets. And there's a lot of people that will tell you, I've heard this before, when the brushes get worn, you can trim them back. No. Original shape of the brush is the original shape of the brush. You don't want to mess with it. I've never seen anybody do it successfully. I don't bother with it. I just buy new brushes. Take care of them. It's your tool. It's everything. It's your trade. Okay? So that's my little educational process on brushes. And I hope you enjoy it.